So we're here at my Prepper Retreat bug out location, and I discovered something recently that really upset me. And what happened is that this tree right here fell over on top of one of my pawpaw trees, and I will explain why here in just a minute of why this was such a big deal. Now, if you're not familiar with the pawpaw fruit and pawpaw trees, I think it's one of the best fruit trees that you can grow, that preppers can grow for food in a grid down situation. First of all, it is a wild growing fruit in much of the eastern part of the United States, but it is a wild growing fruit, and with it being wild growing, it is very disease and insect resistant. So you actually get a good yield from your pawpaw fruit trees typically without having to spray them. And that's something that a lot of people don't know about or forget about, and that is that most of these store-bought fruit trees that you buy, such as apple trees, pear trees, peach trees, etc., most of those fruit trees you have to spray several times a year to kill the fungal infections and to kill the insects that want to make your fruit rot in order for you to have an actual harvest from those fruit trees so that you can eat in a grid down situation. Well, the problem is in a grid down situation, you're probably not going to be able to run to the store to get those sprays. So again, that's one of the things I love about the pawpaw. Again, is because with it being wild, it has natural resistance to those diseases and insects that normally prey on our fruit trees. The other thing I really like about the pawpaw fruit is that its taste. It really has a combination of a banana and a mango and a vanilla flavoring to it, and the fruits are just about the size of an average baking potato, so they're not small fruits either, but great flavor and decent sized fruits. And a little known fact about pawpaw trees is that reportedly on one of the Lewis and Clark expeditions, on their way back from their expedition, reportedly they ran out of food on their way back and they were about to starve to death, and then they discovered pawpaw trees and they actually lived off pawpaw until they made it back from their expedition to get other food. But let's get back to the pawpaw trees that are here right now. Now, right now, it is winter time, so all of these pawpaw trees are bare, so they don't look like much because, again, it's winter time and they're bare. But during the warmer months, they really have a lot of growth on them, and I really think that a couple of these trees here are just a couple of years away from producing fruit themselves. But one of the things about this little pawpaw grove here is that they did not produce any fruit last year, so I think that these are related trees. Something that a lot of people don't know about pawpaw trees is that one of the ways they reproduce themselves is they drop the fruit contains seeds, and then the seeds end up in the ground and a new pawpaw tree pops up. But another way that they reproduce themselves is that in their root system underground, a new tree will actually pop up from their root system to make another tree. The problem with that, though, is that any roots that come out from underneath the ground that's connected to one of these trees, then that means that those trees are related and they will not pollinate each other. So what I highly suspect, because I have not gotten any flowers or any fruit at all from these trees in this little pawpaw grove, what I highly suspect is that all of these trees here are related to each other. So what I did to get this little small pawpaw grove to hopefully start producing fruit in the very near future is I did what's called grafting, where I took scions or however you want to pronounce it, but I took branches from cultivated, unrelated pawpaw trees and I grafted them onto these pawpaw trees here in this little grove. And this one here was one that I was really excited about because it was the largest tree. It was looking really good. And so when you graft a scion from an unrelated tree onto this tree, then that actually makes, even though they're growing from the same tree, that actually makes this tree, this branch from this tree, unrelated to this tree here. So in essence, what you're doing is you're turning a tree that normally would not pollinate itself or pollinate each other. You're actually I'm actually hopefully turning these trees into self-pollinating trees again, because this tree branch here is now not going to be related to the rest of the tree that it's growing on. So a couple of things that really upset me about this tree falling on this pawpaw tree is that, number one, this is my first time ever doing grafting. So I'm really hoping to see if these take off. Did I do this grafting correctly or not? The other thing that I was really excited about this little pawpaw grove here is that it is really close to my cabin. If it wasn't for the trees, I'm so close to my cabin, I could actually throw a rock from here and actually hit my cabin with that rock. So I was also very excited about having fruit trees so close to my cabin here, because most of my fruit trees that's in my orchard and the other pawpaw groves, they are spread out across this property. They're just not so close to the cabin where you can walk out and take 50 steps and grab you a piece of fruit off the tree. So that's another thing that really upset me about that. Now, what I don't know is if this pawpaw tree is going to live, since this larger tree fell on top of it. So before I filmed this video a couple weeks ago, I took some cuts off of this tree so I could make it light enough so I can move it off of this pawpaw tree, because that tree that fell was actually on top of this pawpaw tree. So you can see it's really bent over now. So my hopes is that the tree is not dead, and that in the spring I will see new growth and the tree will continue growing and hopefully produce me fruit down the road. And then it's probably hard to tell with all the bare sticks, but every one of these little orange flags that you see is where I have grafted a scion from a unrelated pawpaw tree onto one of these trees, again making pretty much every one of these pawpaw trees an unrelated tree or a self-pollinating tree. So all of them should start producing fruit. If I had introduced biodiversity in this little pawpaw grove by planting baby pawpaw trees instead of doing the grafting, it would probably take me 6 or 7 years before these trees started producing fruit. And my hopes is that by doing this grafting that they will start producing fruit here in the next couple of years rather than 5, 6, 7 years from now. So anyways, here's the whole point about this video here, is it got me thinking and remembering the old prepper saying of 2 is 1 and 1 is none. Because if I was reliant on this one pawpaw grove here to feed my family in a grid down situation, I may have had a horrible thing happen here. Now luckily, I have several pawpaw groves here on my bug out retreat property. But anyways, it just got me remembering that 2 is 1, 1 is none. So as disappointing as this was, it didn't have me totally freaked out, again, because I have numerous pawpaw groves that I am really taking care of already on my property. So here in the next, even right now we get pawpaw fruit when they're in season, but in the next couple of years we should have more pawpaw than what we could ever possibly eat. And this is also just another example of why I have multiple different types of fruit trees up in my orchard. This is why I don't plant just 1 or 2 apple trees or just 1 or 2 peach trees or 1 or 2 pear trees. This is the reason why I have 5 or 6 different apple trees and 5 or 6 different pear trees and 5 or 6 different peach trees. And of course I've got more pawpaws growing up in my orchard itself too, so it'd be even more abundance of food. Again, once all these trees reach the maturity, hopefully here in the next couple of years, that they will start producing fruit themselves. One of the things I've learned about having this property is that you will have Murphy's Law. If I really want a tree someplace, almost certainly I'm going to either have a tree fall on it, or a deer is going to take out that tree, or something's going to happen. So again, 2 is 1, 1 is none. So if I really want to make sure I have fruit in the area, I plant double or triple the amount of trees that I think that I need, so that I can hopefully overcome Murphy's Law. And my goal is that I actually have enough food producing trees growing on this property that this property will produce more food, more fruit, more nuts, etc., but will produce more food than what me and my family could ever eat if we had to. This way, this will give me extra food that I can preserve to last over the winter time, and also extra food that I could use for bartering with my neighbors if it came down to that. So hey, if you're planning on planting a couple of fruit trees at your home or your homestead so that you can have some food after a grid down situation happens, I would really suggest that you plant more than just a couple of trees. I would suggest that you plant 4 times the amount of trees than what you think you will need, because I'll tell you this, Murphy's Law does happen too much. So I'm curious, who else on this channel is planting pawpaw trees if they do grow in your area? And if they don't grow in your area, what other fruit or food-bearing trees are you planting? And did you know that if you are planting food-bearing or fruit-producing trees on your property, that more than likely you're planting the wrong trees, and more than likely you're not going to end up with any food from those trees in a grid down situation? So to learn what most people don't know about growing food producing trees, then click on the video that should be appearing on the screen just about now to learn what most people don't know. Anyways folks, this is enough internet for me today. I do need to get back to work, and folks, if you made it this far, hey, thank you very much for watching, and I pray that you have a good night.